Discipleship and the word disciple, they're very Christian sort of words. You don't hear them outside of Christian circles, but once you become a Christian, you're forever reading in New Testament that there are disciples here and disciples there and disciples all over the place. So who are disciples and what counts as being discipleship? Well, the man with all the answers is the Dean of Sydney, Philip Jensen. Philip, good day.
Hello, Kel. Not all the answers, but discipleship I have thought about.
Okay, we'll start with the meaning of the word. What does the word disciple mean?
Well, it means a student, a learner.
Right.
The Greek word mathetes, mathematics. Mathematics is a good discipline.
Yes.
And discipline, disciple, discipline, both sense of our words. You know, what you do with children is to discipline them.
Right.
Positive disciplining of them is to actually teach them.
There is a secular use of the word that's lost the learning thing. You know, they talk about a certain politician having, you know, the disciples, or, you know, someone who's an author or a star having disciples. And they just mean followers. They don't mean learners, do they?
No. But one of the chief ways of learning is by following, is by imitating. You know, like a little child walking behind their father is mimicking them and so learning from them. But it's also... our educational patterns have become very book-centred.
Yes.
And very abstract. And so you go into libraries and you learn and the like. Whereas some of the best kinds of concepts of discipleship are things like apprenticeship.
Right.
I mean, my father was a printer and he always had apprentices. He saw that as one of his roles, functions and responsibilities in life was to have apprentices. And he would train them, he would disciple them in how to become a master printer. And so it wasn't cheap labour for him, it was discipleship training.
So being a disciple of Christ is not like going to university, it's like going to a technical college.
Yes, much more like that, much more. And it's much more like going into work to do the job with him. So the disciples worked with Jesus and then he sent them out on short-term missions. Then they came back and reported to him.
Right.
And even when he called them to come fish for men. Right. So you leave your fishing. So it wasn't come learn so that you could be clever.
It was come do something.
Come and do something.
There is one thing about that apprenticeship model. For Christians, our discipleship is lifelong. Apprentices get to some point where they graduate and they become masters themselves. We don't as Christians. It's lifelong apprenticeship, isn't it?
True, but a master tradesman, if he's any good, will always be growing. Right. Always be learning, always getting the new technology, always improving his skills and his abilities. But yes, there is a difference, isn't there? Because people get their ticket after 5 years, whereas we don't. We get our ticket when we start and at the end. Yes.
Well, yeah, we're looking forward. We hope the graduation is the well done, good and faithful service.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. Because I discover as I get older as a Christian how much I still have to learn.
Yes. Yes, it's with Christianity, as with some other disciplines, the more you know you don't know.
Right.
And so when you first start out, you know everything like a teenager. But then as you grow in Christ, you start to realise how little you know and how much you need yet to learn.
And the emphasis is on doing. I've got to do this more if I'm going to understand this better, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. So there's a lovely verse by the Apostle Paul where he says, knowledge puffs up, love builds up. And because it's just to know lots of stuff puffs you up. It doesn't actually teach you to be humble. Yes. It doesn't teach you to submit to your Father in heaven. It's if you really know, then you'll love people more.
Yes.
And so true knowledge is connected with action and appropriate action, right action, such as love in Christian fellowship.
And such as sharing the gospel with people.
Yes.
And there is a skills component in that. You know, it's that ability to know the gospel clearly enough and to talk to someone in a way that it gets across bridges, as it were.
Yes, although when we train disciples these days, we spend a lot of time on the skill stuff.
Right.
When Jesus trained disciples, he spent a lot of time on the person stuff, on the character.
Ah, right.
So the Sermon on the Mount is discipleship training. Now, it doesn't tell you how to draw 6 pictures from 2 ways to live so that you can share the gospel with somebody, but it does teach you how to be the person that you're preaching.
Right. So how do you be the person? What is the characteristic that makes you Christian in character? Is there a simple way of summarising that?
Well, firstly, it's regeneration.
Right.
And that's why the disciples still haven't understood the Sermon on the Mount, even when Jesus has finished it.
Yes.
Because it's being born again that changes the heart so that you don't keep the law like a Pharisee, looking for loopholes, looking to minimise it.
Yes.
But you keep it as one of God's people who is looking to maximise what it has to say and finding other ways in which I can apply it to my life.
And the big problem in doing that is the environment in which we live, which is not on our side, is it?
No. See, Jesus preaches at the end of Matthew chapter 4, huge crowds, people from 2 weeks' travel time away are bringing their sick people, their sick friends, to have them heal them. Massive crowds. The disciples, I presume, it doesn't say so, but I presume, think they're on a winner. I mean, they've just left their father and their nets in the fishing industry, following this man, and a massive national movement has started, and they're...
Look, hey, we're in the front of this crowd.
Front row.
Yeah.
We're the chief men to help the man.
Yes.
So they're successes. Jesus then calls his disciples apart, up onto the mountain, and then teaches them how they are to fish for men. Now, it starts off really in terms of, blessed are you when you are persecuted, and all manner of evil said against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for such is the... And it finishes up with, many will say unto me, Lord, Lord, didn't we preach in your name, do mighty miracles in your name? And I will say, depart from me, I never knew you. So the sense of, well, I'm going to be popular, this is going to be a big movement, I'm going to be at the front of the show, and I'm going to do great miracles like Jesus, and I'm going to... And that's exact opposite of what Jesus is saying is going to happen to them.
And in fact, it comes out in the "you are the salt of the earth" sort of stuff, just because
Yes.
you've explained what salt means in that context. Just come back to that.
It's one of my long weeks of preparation. I thought I had a really easy sermon. I'd have it knocked over by Monday. It took all week. Because most people see salt and light as salt is the kind of flavour of society, light is the gospel to the world,
yeah,
the preservative.
Yes.
That's right. And that's because in the 19th century, salt was used for preservative and taste.
Yes.
But I thought, well, what was it used for in the ancient world? Then I discovered that there are 13 different uses in the ancient world, things I'd never even thought about. It's in fertiliser, it's used to curse the land. If you want to make land infertile, you put too much salt on. They used to pay tax in salt. There were all kinds of usages. So I thought, well, which did Jesus mean? And so I searched through the Old Testament, because Jesus is always quoting the Old Testament, and then I found another 3 or 4 that weren't in the other list, you see. And so I didn't know which. So I then looked through all the Gospels. By this stage, Wednesday, Thursday's coming. The secretary wants the outline of the sermon. And I looked through the Gospel, and the closest parallel is at the end of Luke 14, I think it is, where Jesus likens salt to fertilisers. And so you are the fertiliser of the land and the light of the world. Didn't seem to make sense to me. And so I looked again at the passage itself, and I realised you don't actually need to know what the metaphor means, because the salt and the light are parallel, and they're parallel to the third metaphor which I'd ignored, namely the city on the hill. That is, they are all distinctively different to their environment. The thing about a light is it shines in the darkness. The thing about a city on a hill is you can't hide it. The thing about the salt is it has to be different or throw it away, it's useless.
So to be Christ-like in character, that is to be a disciple, is to be different.
Is to be different to this world. You've got to be different to this world, which is why the blessing for the disciples really is spelt out as, blessed are you when men persecute you, hate you and revile you for my name's sake, because you're going to be different and you're going to make people feel uncomfortable.
And in fact, that's the big theme of the Sermon on the Mount. Just
Yes.
do not be like the world around you.
Yes, that's right. John Stott, in his lovely little book called Christian Counterculture, which is a commentary on the Sermon on the Mount, says that Matthew 6:8 is the topic sentence, which says, do not be like them.
So that's what we have to be, is different from the world around us with the values of Christ, which invert the values of the world almost.
Absolutely, yeah.